We are recording. Richard, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much, man. I've looked forward to being on your show and hoped to be on it for so long. When I got the invite, I was so excited, and then there was a delay, and I've just been chomping at the bit. So I'm really, really honored to be here.
Well, honored to have you, and a big shout out to Joe Nakamoto, Joe Hall, who put us in touch.
Jojo
Yeah,
Crinjo.
Yeah, Joe Crinjo, as the kids call him.
right. Nice, nice.
Don't know why.
Because he's
Well,
cringe.
because he is cringe. Yes, probably exactly the reason. Anyway, Joe's gonna listen to this, by the way.
He knows it already.
Okay, Joe, you know you're cringe. All right.
He's said it
Joe's,
3
Joe's got
times
some pretty
already.
thick skin.
Do you have a question for Richard?
Uh, Dad was telling me that you're started or have already, or you're starting a Bitcoin meetup or something Bitcoin thing in Peru.
More than a meetup. They've had a meetup there for a while, and we've joined that. But what we started using Bitcoin as a tool to bring humanitarian aid in a more holistic way than what we normally see. We normally see it's either charity, which is giving, which is great to give, but when you go to a place where people are really desperate and you're giving, it creates a horrible situation. It's very, very, very important for them that they have a way to earn that, and then it puts them on a path to where they start building the blocks within themselves to climb out of those situations. Otherwise, as soon as the gift stops, they're back in probably a worse situation. And we came across Bitcoin. We had started, me and my co-founder were installing a playground at a little schoolhouse. I mean, it's like maybe a 15-meter by 3-meter building, but in this remote Andean village. And long story short, we came across a problem where they were losing 5% of their children every year to diseases and illnesses, primarily related to exposure to cold through their feet. And the village was they were very ashamed of this, and they were not forthright about that. And we had to really let them know, hey, it's safe to tell us what's going on. And it was a simple solution. It was athletic hiking boots, once or twice a year, socks, and a visit by some foot medical specialists, because their feet were freezing and thawing and freezing and thawing. So the skin on their feet, that was like blackened leather. It wasn't dirt. It was actually like some kind of, I don't know, some kind of burn. But then also the bone development in your feet, where you touch the ground, where your weight relies on, is really key. And their poor circulation there was causing developmental programs all the way up through their spine. So you had a lot of older kids that survived, but they had crippling problems to various degrees. So we did that the first year, and I just raised the money here, and tried to sort of cast the net out to see if other people would want to join. And the next summer, when we go to do that again, it was the summer of 2020 in COVID, and a much bigger solution was needed, and people weren't willing to donate right then, or it was tougher to find them. I couldn't find them. And a very generous Bitcoin maximalist said, I will donate Bitcoin, but you need to make the transactions be circular. Don't cash it out. And we had no idea what to do or how to do that. So we just started trying. And my co-founder found a shoe manufacturer that would accept Bitcoin, where he could get to the owner of a small manufacturer, and he accepted Bitcoin. We paid for socks in Bitcoin. So we'd have to talk everyone into taking Bitcoin, the medical professionals. And then with the lockdowns were maybe most draconian in Peru. It was absolute lockdown, martial law type thing. They had the highest death rate, the highest infection rate. They were required to wear double masks and a face shield and gloves. You couldn't go anywhere. It prevented me from going down and being involved hands-on. And what they started running into the problem of, and I'm getting way beyond your question. I don't know if I should halt me if I should, but what we started running the problem of is people all around Lima, the biggest city, 11 million people. About 70% of the country is on what they call an informal economy. We would call it a black market, not paying taxes, not registered with the government, maybe no identification or whatnot. And so when everything locks down and you're not allowed to get out and about, you also can't transact. So you can't go to the market, but the market also can't go to the supplier where they get their goods, and the supplier can't go to the producer where they get goods. And so the parts of the economy that are governed and on the official government side, so it's the wealthy, it's the slim wealthy few, those things, the regular grocery stores, they had policies like they had elsewhere, but the people in the streets were starving, and the markets you could break into them, but there wasn't nothing in there. And so Valley started sourcing food, and we that kind of formed a US team up here started coming up with designs on, all right, how do we build an economy out of this disaster? And the best tool to use for that is Bitcoin. Just so happens we had been trying to figure out Bitcoin and shoes and all this thing. Well, Bitcoin worked really well for that. And we were able to, initially, the way they would earn just basic sustenance for the week, food to keep them alive for the week, come take a class on how to transact in Bitcoin. And Valley and his team took very big risks going out in public during the pandemic, during the lockdown, and having events with hundreds of people at them, socially distanced and all, but still outside of what was supposed to go on. And they would download a wallet. They'd come back another day. They'd transact. They'd come back a third day, and we'd have a market there. And we've sponsored the market's goods, and the market is going to sell those goods to these people. And just sort of step by step, we found that in that culture, it shows somebody how to do it with your hands. Don't tell them or have them read something or whatnot. So we'd show them how to do that, and started orange pilling that way. And that was the initial start. It's completely different from that now, but so our meetups were more, we would have events of hundreds of people, and we were downloading thousands of wallets every month out into the public and doing transactions. And it was a means to help people stay alive and not starve, help kids not become malnourished. We're already dealing with, and Valley has a ministry there that he's dealt with malnutrition on behalf of other missions and ministries and on behalf of municipalities. It's a really, really huge problem there in child development and all. And so this was a means of us coming up with a creative way to use Bitcoin as a very unique tool, the only tool we could do this with safely. You could use a crypto, but you can have the rug pulled out from these people, and the last ones you'd want to do that to. So we used Bitcoin as a tool to enact that program.
Very cool. All right. Well, I've got a bunch more questions. So are you finished with your questions?
I have one more question.
Okay.
Did you know Bitcoin before the Bitcoin maximalist asked to pay in Bitcoin, or?
Excellent question. And I just heard a podcast this morning where they were talking about a documentary they're going down to shoot, and they had mentioned, like, hey, Rich and Valley, they're not these big steak eating Bitcoin maximalists. I have always eaten steak, and now I would probably put myself in the camp of, could be put in the camp of Bitcoin maximalist, but no, we didn't. We had no clue. I had heard about it before. in several times. When it came up in financial matters, I didn't care. I've never been dialed in with finance at all. Early on, I heard about it really early, so I have the ability to kick myself for not jumping in. But the cryptology of it, I had worked with the U.S. military and NATO with nuclear codes, and so we would do cryptology. I'm not a cryptologist, but it was really interesting in how they would do that and how we would use that. I worked in intelligence as well. We'd use cryptology. So I thought it was very cool that they solved the double spend problem, but I wasn't thinking about money. I was thinking about information that intelligence operatives would be able to pass off to somebody else, and there wouldn't be a trace of it left behind. Things like that. So no, it was when that Bitcoin, very generous Bitcoin donor, very anonymous, generous Bitcoin donor said that, it was dive into YouTube, try to figure it out. I ended up attending an MIT course on blockchain and innovation with business and blockchain and Bitcoin and the whole kind of landscape.
Was that Gensler's course?
Yeah.
Right. Cool.
Just post Gensler.
Yeah. Before he went off to the SEC.
Yeah. Right after he went to the SEC. And I think it was right after that I took the course. So I didn't take a course. He wasn't one of my instructors.
Right. I see. Okay. All right. Excellent. Okay. Good questions.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Thank you.
Now, May, apologies because I'm having a total flashback. We already spoke like way back. You contacted me and I just checked my emails back in like 2021, and you explained that what was going on, and you were ex-military, and that I had it completely, like, so much has happened since then, Lauren. So much. Yeah. And I remember trying to put you in touch with some contacts I had on the ground there, and I'll follow up with them again after this, and I'll even send them the podcast to see if there's any way that they can add value to you. Now you've got everything up and running as well, and yeah, I'm sorry if that went cold, and for not realizing this earlier. But when Joe put me in touch, I honestly thought this would be the first time we were talking. So it's amazing to have had that. I can't even remember, how did that initial conversation even happen? Maybe you DM'd me on Twitter or something?
Possibly. I really don't know. The other thing that happened, we've had just incredible things hit us. The pandemic was an incredible thing that hit us and had a major effect. And then when we really, and at first it was a side project. It was, hey, look, I'll help you do this, help you do that. When we started figuring out, oh, we need to build circular economies, we recognized it's a bigger thing, and the donors' funding was good enough to do a bigger thing. We realized, at first I started thinking, well, I will design this system and these programs. I will hand it off to somebody who does this kind of thing, or an entity that does this kind of work. We've got Valley on the ground for deployment, testing, and execution. And it'll be a side thing. And I had taken time off to go do more studies. I took a course of study at UCLA on program management, different things like that. And then I realized early 2021, I realized, like, no, this is going to be large, and I'm going to need to be fully invested in it. And so the plan was, and talked it over with my wife, and we have a young son. He was 4 or 5 at the time. We're going to live like 3 months here in California, 3 or 4 months in Peru, and then 3 or 4 months somewhere else, third world, something kind of world school for the kid, but also world develop this business. And that was the plan. We start rolling forward. Can't go down there because of the lockdown, so that puts the plan on hold. And then in the summer of 2021, I developed cancer. and I was very final late stages. I'm kind of an idiot and a little bit dense, and so we didn't catch it until I was almost gone. And so then that was a whole thing, right? Through bone marrow transplants and stem cell transplants and living in hospitals. And yeah, when I say we've been blindsided by a lot of big things, we've been blindsided by a lot of big things. So this all happened after that contact. And the other thing is the portion of motive that I described to you, we found fatal flaws in that. It was a great survival mechanism. It did good things. It kept some people alive, surely. The shoe program has literally saved a bunch of lives. But in the summer of 2021, we recognized our fatal flaw and had a oh crap moment. And we took a couple months of intensive redesign where we really came up with the community-based program that actually generates and radiates a circular economy in such a way that it gives opportunity, financial opportunity and inclusion to the unbanked, to the ain't ever gonna be able to be banked sort of people. And so then it was really intensive trying to field test that, bring it back here, have really great, me and Valley get mentioned a lot, but we're the ones that we're hit with. And the thing that I credit me and Valley both with, and really only this, is we saw something we couldn't tolerate and we stepped forward to do something, and it was small, and then it just grew bigger. But both he and I would never step away from something that needed to be done. But the actual creation of all this, the field testing, the design, I had a good friend of mine, Alex Fedoruk, good family friend, who actually is the one who introduced us to the donor. He's the one that actually helped Mike Peterson get his initial. Me and Bitcoin Beach, Motive and Bitcoin Beach have the same donor. So Alex is very key in that, and he was very key in helping design our systems and our methods and operating system. John Hallman, who's a very seasoned executive. He did project management directly under Steve Jobs at Apple long ago, was the CEO or the general manager of THX, the sound company. He brought a lot of great business expertise and mind to it. My wife on the legal matters and administrative messes that she's had to clean up. And then down in Peru, Valley has a whole host of people, like his right-hand man down there is Franco, a guy up in Cusco named Moses, and too many more to list, Sonia and Betty, a bunch of people under there. So it's a large group. It's probably 50 of us that roll this thing out. And there's an excellent design team and an excellent field deployment team. And Bitcoin does a lot. It's a great tool, but it doesn't do anything without the team smartly putting it into play. And we did it in a dumb way a lot of times. So I think we're much smarter about it now.
So, yeah, I've just checked back. We spoke end of July, start of August 2021. So that's when.
Oh,
yes, man. Like
I had a broken back. I had broken ribs and a broken back, and yeah, that was so. Yeah, and I was diagnosed like at the end of September. The broken bones were from the cancer, so it's yeah. So don't sweat it. I just rolled right into a hurricane after that.
Whoa. Okay. Well, let's find out a little bit more about your background then. Ex-military. What were you doing there? How many years? What was your niche?
I did about 10 years total. And I did anti-terrorism, counterterrorism. I was assigned to a secret NATO unit that was a nuclear strike force to hit Russia. And physical security, air base ground defense. Like in the Gulf War, I went over and did that, and my role there was to go and take over an air base and secure it. I was a super junior guy at that time. And then, but I got to do some cool tactical things with regard to anti-terrorism, counterterrorism. I did a lot counter sniper stuff, like for presidential visits and dignitary visits and stuff. And then I went into LAPD. And in the later part of my tenure at LAPD, I went into a now gone unit, but it was called Anti-Terrorist Division. It was very, very secret. And through that became a member of the Federal Joint Terror Task Force. So did a lot of, intelligence related anti-terrorist stuff where it's, I did everything from, I started out doing like white power stuff because that's why I was recruited for that. But I kept getting recruited by those units. So the bad guys, I was very obvious and visible to them. So I switched over. I'd lived in the Middle East, spoke I speak a bit of Turkish. I used to speak a tiny bit of Arabic. So I started working more of the Islamic extremist groups, and then became a sports agent. So
Like you do.
Left that. Yeah. It's pretty much the normal progression. Always been a motocross racer, and opportunities just kind of fell together, and became a sports agent in the action sports realm for a while, and then I've been in this business ever since.
Loads to ask you about there then. So what do you mean recruited by the bad guys?
So without I don't think I'll be giving away any trade secrets or whatnot, but when you're doing surveillance, you are in and among them. It's different than deep cover, where you assume an identity and actually live and play a role. I didn't do that. But when you're doing surveillance, you're around them and among them. And if you look at me and get a good look, and then you look at a black man, you're gonna remember way more about me than you will him, because I look more similar to the face you see in the mirror. You'll recognize a white person and the smaller, more distinct features way more readily than you will somebody that is Asian or black, or looks very, very different. So that's one side of it. And when you're doing surveillance, you don't want to be burned. You don't want them to go like, I saw that guy 2 days ago, and I saw that guy 7 days ago. Then there's going to be a problem. When you're a terrorist organization, you're on the lookout for those kind of things. And so I was recognizable, so we knew that, and I'd be very careful with, disguises and outfits and things like that. But the other thing is, I just looked the part, man. I had long blonde hair, big old long Viking beard, and I'm out with, I won't say, the names or types of groups, but I'd get be at a restaurant. I'd be sitting down and eating nearby, and they'd be like, "Hey, brother, you ever," and I'd be like, "Hey, man, I'm just eating my eggs. I don't want to talk." And then I'm burned, so I'm off the case and I'm off the group. Where I could do the same thing with Al Qaeda, and they don't remember me. They've seen me for months now, and they don't remember me. So I look too different. So that's how I ended up getting bounced.
Wow, that's crazy. I would have thought the opposite to be true. Like you see somebody that doesn't look anything like you walk past, you think they would stick out in your mind way more than somebody that was 6'1", same color hair as me, same color face shape as me. I'm going to remember them more than I would remember like the very weird looking person, 5'2" ginger.
Yeah, you're going to recognize them more. Now, if I'm rolling like this into a mosque, yeah, I'm going to stick out like a sore thumb, and they will pay attention. That's not, and we never went into mosques. But no, and Well, and even like if we had one of our Hispanic operatives or black operative go up to Aryan nations in Idaho, yeah, that wouldn't work. But if I were to go up there and wanted to kind of just blend in, I'd have to be really careful about how I did it. I'd have to really avoid certain act in a certain way and avoid certain types of contact to where they would zero in. You know, you can meet somebody and they just really don't register and you don't remember. Other times you meet something happens or something's said where boom, they really resonate and it causes a memory. So you learn tricks of avoiding that.
I got to ask now then, when you watch all of these like Hollywood movies, like spy movies, or what was that Homeland series? I can't remember. Damian Lewis was on there, or a Bond movie or something like that. Are you just sitting there rolling your eyes like, what a load of absolute nonsense? Or is there something there?
So much so that I just can't even watch them. You know, and there's other, you know, I'll watch a Born Identity movie. Yeah, it's fantasy. It's complete horseshit, but man, that's cool. Or like John Wick, his weapons manipulation. So I'm a competitive shooter, and you know, the proficiency that he gained in weapons manipulation. It's not about marksmanship when it comes to gunfighting. It's about clearing malfunctions. It's about transitioning guns, reloading at the right time, counting shots. And man, Keanu Reeves did a fantastic job. I got to meet and be on a podcast of one of his trainers. But yeah, but cop movies, Heat was a good one, and the best cop movie, well, Colors was really good. I think there's a lot to learn from that movie. It was really poignant. It was helpful for me as a young cop, and actually, one of my academy classmates, his dad was Pac-Man, the one that they created Robert Duvall's character out of. And one of my sergeants in my first unit, he was the character that Sean Penn played. So had a cool connection to Colors. That was a neat one. And then, End of Watch. If you ever want to know what it's like to be on LAPD, that is not unrealistic whatsoever. The gunfight at the end sort of is, but weird things happen. But the rest of it is just that just is the way it was when I worked South Central LA. That was a good one.
Police Academy doing anything for you?
Oh yeah, that's a great one. And that's actually our gymnasium, the office that they show, like the chief.
You're kidding.
No, that's our and the city doesn't own it. The police union, the police, it's the Los Angeles Police Revolver and Athletic Club, private organization. We own it and we lease it to the police department. So it's still a cool place. I just took a friend of mine that I met in Miami. She came out here and took her and showed her around the academy. But yeah, and the movie, shooting that movie there, that's awesome. I'd watch that one again.
Now you've obviously stepped away from that, and I'm sure you're following the Bitcoin veterans out there, their podcast and whatever else, and maybe in Telegram groups and stuff. How do you? And now you've gone down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. How? Because all of us have had a mind shift. How do you view all of that in the past and what you know now and what you've learned through going down the Bitcoin rabbit hole?
The thing that Bitcoin helped me see is it helped me dig into what currency really is, what the banking system structure really is, what it was, and then be able to see, I put back on my detective's mind and my intel operative investigator's mind and really look at the intent to why something would be designed in the way that it is and maintained in the way that it is. And it brings me up. I think I was cut out very early on with a strong mind toward justice. Not hyper competitive or anything like that. I'm a competitor, but I'm one of those guys where I'd love it if I win, but I don't hate to lose. But where I will be immovable is when there's an injustice. I won't back down, and I will fight to win. And I won't accept losing. And looking at that, that's what's been perpetrated. And it also, you kind of carry that over, and you start looking at, all right, well, who then? I went off to fight in a war. My son has gone off and fought in a war. My son and my daughter-in-law are getting ready to be deployed again to a place that I'm not stoked about. And I was happy to do that. I was proud to do that. I feel bad when people are like, oh, thanks so much for your service. I'm like, no, thank you, man. I was born to do that. I'm cut out for it. The people that, you know, I have friends that have PTSD over those kind of things. Man, I don't. I was good with it. But lost friends, and I'm still losing friends to, you know, to suicide and things like that. And I look at, wait a minute, what were we actually fighting for? Because I was fighting for that red, white, and blue thing right there. I was fighting for that Constitution. And you people that we hired to run this, you've sold out to somebody else. You know, I would, Valley's on the payroll to execute field deployment down in Peru, and trust him, and I'm happy that he's earning and doing well with that. And if I found out that he was actually working with a group of Peruvian businessmen, they were taking the Bitcoin and they were fabricating videos and send them back up to me, I'd string him up. If he found out that I was doing something like that, I would expect him to do the same to me. And that's kind of what I look at. I look at bureaucratic agencies within the government beholden to industry and companies, not to the American people. And the elected officials are a great puppet show that keeps us distracted. And it's not at all the way it's supposed to be. And it's, I guess, you know, if I was around in the 1770s, I'd absolutely be a revolutionary, because when wrong is wrong, I'm willing to fight. And what we have right now, and it's not just national, it's global. And it's wrong, and it's illegal. It absolutely is breaching it's unconstitutional way that this country is being run, and others are being run by the same cabal, because industry is international, companies are international. So I did understand quite a bit of that beforehand, but Bitcoin, you know, when it's follow the money, I have to admit, I was a pretty good detective. I saw tons of murders, robberies, and all kinds of stuff. But financial crimes, not at all. We had special people to do that. I was clueless about it, and I understood follow the money. Like when I'm taking down, I'm bringing in a junkie, and then getting them to give up the dealer, and go taking down the dealer and get them to give me the cookhouse, and from the cookhouse going toward the, you know, the cartel or whoever's bringing it in. And yeah, I'd follow the money. Money would make sense there, but I never really looked at financial systems as being really the cardiovascular and nervous system of everything. And I also never really fully thought about the freedom to transact as being a basic human right. I'm a Christian. I believe our basic human rights were given to us by our Creator, and that is a basic human right, because without that, you can't take part in many other things that everyone would agree is a human right. So transacting is a human right. So our right to absolutely and 100% possess and own the medium of transaction, the currency, is wrong. It can't be that. It can't be that way. That's where I say, in that sense, yeah, I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. I don't know. Maybe there's a way that something else could be invented. It wouldn't be able to come to be as Bitcoin came to be, because it would be jumped on too quickly. But until I see something else that absolutely puts true whole ownership, uninterrupted ownership in the hands of the individuals, then I'm Bitcoin absolutist.
It's pretty dark when you follow that money, and it leads you to the formation of the Federal Reserve. And if you read The Secrets of the Federal Reserve by Eustace Mullins, or Jekyll Island by Edward G. Griffin, you can find yourself in a pretty angry place pretty quickly, because it all becomes apparent, and then you realize, this is how society is today because of what those a-holes did all those years ago, which they did knowingly and they did coercively, by putting people in place and like using them puppet show, like you said, putting in people in places where they needed them to be at the right time so they could get through the Reserve Act, Christmas week of 1913, when half of Congress were off the floor, like, absolute like despicable stuff. And it's really difficult to not get angry when you realize this, and the suffering, that the ripple effects of that, and the suffering around the world that we are currently seeing. And like you said something earlier, it's not about the unbanked, it's about those who will never be able to be banked, like don't even have a chance in hell of ever getting a bank account. And so yes, Bitcoin is human rights and it is freedom.
Yeah, and I have the anger on those that designed that, and like, okay, I've always looked at it, or what can I do? I'm not a tall guy. I've shrunk even more since I broke my back, but not tall guy, not a big guy. And one of my questions going into when I'm going through, I actually never liked cops, never wanted to be a cop. I got out of the military. I wanted to come out to the motocross industry in Southern California. And I had gone to SWAT competitions, and LAPD SWAT was like, I mean, just so far beyond any other team. So that was like, all right, well, yeah, I'll go there and do that. And I'm in the academy, so I'm wrapping my head around law enforcement. I was really more just soldier. And that was my mindset. We don't go into a gunfight to get them to surrender. We go into a gunfight, put them down. So I'm learning all this. And one of my questions when we were talking about escalation of force was, okay, I'm in a dark alley. I'm alone. My radio is not working, or it fell out or something. And at the time, the biggest, scariest UFC fighter was this guy, Tank Abbott. Tank Abbott's at the other end of this box alley, and he's committed a felony. I need to take him in. How in the world am I going to get cuffs on Tank Abbott if he don't want them on? And the instruction was, you logically think through and you articulate, what can I do? What can I not do? What would be, and then be able to answer it. Because yeah, the end result in that is, if I'm taking him and he absolutely doesn't want to go, I'm shooting him. That's it. I'm not going to be able to do anything else. That's just the reality of it. And I had to, I had a lot of uses of force through my time on the department. I had to really articulate and be able to think through like this. Okay, well, now it's this next step. And so I think about things in those terms. When it came to motive, okay, they're dying because of exposure to cold through their feet. Let's get shoes on them. Let's get some foot education. There's something going here. What can we do? When it's coming up with Bitcoin circular economies, okay, what is an economy? What is a local economy that'll actually support them, and how, and just come up with those pieces. And when I look at this bigger problem, this bigger, broader problem, I get angry at the way they've designed it, but it's a corrupt, nefarious organization that is hijacking due process or the financial systems of our country. Like I think Rothschild said, give me control of a country's currency and I care not what the laws state or who makes the laws or whatever. And I say, okay, there's your move. you need to go down. So how do I go about doing that? Well, I think that the first step in it is we need to stop the hypnosis of the public. And there's so much that we believe, no, traditionally, and I see it a lot of different personality types around me, in my family and in my friends, that no, I want to believe this. I'm a Fox News guy. I believe what Fox News says. Hold on. Can't believe what anybody says. Look at everything. Other side. No, CNN, MSNBC, I believe what they say, and you can't stop and break down and look at the details. And what I've found, and so I've tried to do that. We do that to the extent we can with the super impoverished, illiterate, and uneducated in Peru. In the US, I'm not dealing with that issue. I'm dealing with the indoctrinated and the hypnotized and wait a minute, you're speaking against America. Oh no, I'm not. I'm one of the guys that raised my hand. I'll go die for this place. But it's been hijacked, and just break down and look at it. And what I've found is a lot of people really do not and will not, no matter what, take the time to break it down and really understand what's going on. And when it comes down to it, we'll actually tell you, listen, just tell me what I'm supposed to believe. And that's what I'm going to do. The problem is, like, there's only one of me, and news organizations and public, information coming out, that's what they're telling you. And you're looking for, oh, okay, that's the easy way. I'll just do that. And humans look for the path of least resistance. Mm-hmm. And so it's angering on one hand, it's frustrating on that other hand. But where I'm able to come at it peaceably is really through my faith and my belief in why I'm here, why we are all here, and where we go after. And I don't feel like it's not my responsibility fix the world, change the world, to do any of that. My responsibility is, if I see something, take one step in that direction. See something needs to be done, take a step in that direction, and then take the next step and take the next step. And can't, I divorce myself from what the final results are. I just want to be effective with what I can be effective with.
So how and why Peru? What took you there?
Happened to be there. It's a funny story. It's lately in the podcast and information, we're getting a little bit of attention, and people will talk about Peru not being the greatest place or not their favorite place. It's not me or Valley's favorite place either. Valley ended up there because he needed back surgery, and when he went from Argentina to Peru to get back surgery to stay with his mother-in-law, he lost his job back in Argentina, and he's been in Peru ever since. And it was just, things unfolded, and he'll tell you, he's like, God just wanted me to be in Peru. For me, Peru was, we were installing this playground. I was working with a ministry. I'd done pretty well, and I had taken time. I had an opportunity to work for a ministry that does great things. One of the things they do, they feed people around the world, and they plant playgrounds that plant community, and that people can be served in when that community is gathered. And it was like, I went from a biochem engineering consulting company where I did business development across the US, and then went to this ministry, and I was just the bottom of the line. It could have been a high school guy, need to know nothing, just a bottom rung employee, and loved it, and set my time aside to go do some of those. And I'll go back into more executive roles later. And down there in Peru, putting in this playground, and it was we were digging through boulders. We had to dig 24 holes that were 2 feet wide and 2 feet deep, and like this far under the grass was
what were you putting in? Like swings, roundabouts, like climbing frames?
Yeah, like the whole thing.
Right.
Like a whole structure, but not a huge one, but there's a bunch of poles to them, right? And those poles have to be anchored. It just so happens they build little shelves of boulder fill, and that's what we were digging through. Valley was my help, and a couple local kids. Valley was my help, and he was terribly altitude sick, and he couldn't do anything, and he just had to sit and watch. And he noticed, while we're struggling with these boulders, he noticed a little boy who didn't walk right. He walked kind of strangely, and he none of the other kids, we'd put all the plastic slides way off, so the local kids, they'll play on those and stay out of our way. And 15 or 20 kids ages 2 to 8 or 10 playing, and all the kids interacting. It's a small village. There's 100 children in the village, so probably 150 people total, and they're all interacting and playing as they would. It's like a tribe, except nobody interacts with this one kid. They can't see him. They don't address him. They don't pick on him. There's nothing negative toward him, but he's invisible, and he knows he's invisible, and he knows to stay out of the way. But he's watching and learning. He's trying to do what other small humans his size do and learn how to be. So Valley's like, hey, I see something. I want to go check this out. Do you mind if I go? I said, sure. So he's gone for a while, and he comes back and he tells me what he had seen. I didn't see any of it. My head's in the ground digging boulders. And Valley said his mother died in childbirth. His dad's a raging alcoholic. He lives in a little mud huddle on the outside of this village. And this village is made up of just, mud brick homes, very dilapidated, very rough looking. And he lives in this little mud huddle, and he showed me pictures. It's like this kind of half dome. There's grass on the ground. There's guinea pigs all in there, and like dead straw on the ground. And then there's a little fire pit in the corner with a grate. And he said the dad is just a raging alcoholic. They both live in this place. The boy tends to the guinea pigs, and they are his friends, and they are his toys, and they are his food. He kills them, cleans them, cooks them, and eats them. And I was like, okay, that sort of makes sense, but tribes don't outcast small kid that way. It's a Christian organized and kind of run, like the village president. He's like the kind of the pastor or whatever. And I was like, this does not fly past the Christian organization test. Like, it doesn't pass a common sense test. What is going on with this is outside. I've been around the world. I've never seen anything like this. And Valley's been around the world. Well, Valley's been around the third world a lot, South America, and he grew up in communist Romania in really rough situations. And he's like, yeah, I don't know. Let me go. I wasn't able to get anything. Let me keep trying. So he goes back, and he's gone for a while. And the village president is the one that breaks down and tells him, like, hey, we lose 5% of our kids every year to exposure to cold, mainly through their feet. We didn't expect that kid to live. When his mom died in childbirth, we know his dad. We just didn't want to get close to him. And then he dies. So we were just ignoring him until he died. And Valley's like, well, he's not going to die. Now it's time to pay attention. And Valley went and he hired some moms to feed this kid when they feed theirs. He said, I will send him clothes. I will. And then he did certain things. He's very much, again, he never picks up a child because he's white, and he doesn't want that. Oh, the gringos coming in, and the pastor's being inappropriate, whatever. Like, he's really careful about anything like that. But he picked up this kid named Jonathan, and he carried him around. All the kids playing on the playground. The playground was finished the next day. And he carried him around, and he made it clear to everyone that, hey, your village is being blessed because this young man is very special. So he was trying to get that village and the kids there to really welcome him in. And so that's where we were like, all right, we got to solve this. We got to solve this. This problem is simple to solve. So we did with the shoes, and a year later, none of the kids in the village died. So it really did work. Should have been, statistically, it would have been 4 or 5 kids that died, and none did. So that was great. What we later, so we now call that our life-saving steps program, and it's sort of it's a way to build a rapport with the community and gain their trust, deliver value up front, real value up front. Don't force anything on them. Just say, hey, we're here doing good. Do you want to talk with us? And that's the way we are able to build relationships in these Quechua villages up around Cusco and up in the Andes. But what we learned is we started doing more of them. Their illiteracy rate is largely due to their dropout rate. Their dropout rate is due to the vehicles that they don't have to get them to school, because to school can be several hours round trip. They're walking. If your shoes are going to get you killed, if your shoes are going to get your daughter killed by going to school, would you send her to school? No. So that's where school goes. Then they have food insecurity and food shortages. They live out in the Andes, farmland all over, but it needs to be tended to, and the alpaca needed to be tended to, and you need to have shoes on to go do that up in the cold Andes. So this shoe program, not only did it save kids from this, but really it preserved and increased the activities that help bring them prosperity and security, like being able to go to school all the way through, like being able to tend to the alpaca and tend to the farm. So there's a variety of crops and food, and you're getting enough protein. Like it was really cool. We didn't design it that way. But when you see something that you can't, the old prayer, Lord, help me accept the things I can't change the things I can't accept, and the wisdom to discern the difference between the two. And this was something that we couldn't accept. So we just rolled forward. So it just happened to be in Peru. And Valley and I make a pretty good team with kind of our different backgrounds. He has 20 years as a missionary, 20 plus years, and all of that being in South America. And then he grew up in communist Romania. So he has zero business acumen. But he understands the plight of people and what they really need and how they can work their way up. So as far as design goes, and then as far as field deployment and testing, reiterate, get a new feature design out there to it. It worked out to be a really good system.
What kind of shoes were you getting out there?
That's a cool story too. So like an athletic, hiking boots sort of turned into almost running soles, but with good tread.
Yeah, they're like a kind of crossover, like trail running shoe or something like that.
Right. But up over the ankle, warm and stuff like that. So that's what we started with. And that shoe manufacturer that accepted Bitcoin, Valley told him, you really want to try to hold as much as you can. Don't spend it. Yeah.
What's the name of the producer? Can we shill?
I don't know him. And he's not our producer.
Right, okay.
I'll tell you who the producer is.
Okay, no problem.
But he's like, I'm going to hold 80% of it. And he didn't. And he sold it. And he's like, oh, why didn't you guys force me to? But so later on, after we discovered the better way to do this is through a community hub to generate circular economies. One guy that came into one of our places in Caraballo, which is like a moonscape dirt hillside outside of Lima, like squatter shanty town. And this guy came in. We have feeding centers too. So we'll put food out there. You have to welcome people in and meet them where they're at and earn their trust before you can really teach them anything that they would hold on to. And so one of the things we do is we feed the children. And the this guy came in, he brought his kids in, and he helped serve, and his kids had nice clothing on and they were well kept, and there was no mom. And that's a huge anomaly in Peru. When mom dies, dad abandons the kids. That's what you do. Give them off to somebody else, a relative or whatever, just get rid of them. And this guy's there with his kids and no mom, and the kids are well taken care of. And so eventually we hear about this guy coming to these feeding things, and we asked the local leader there, what's his story? So we asked him, and he's like, well, I had a cobbler business and a shoe repair business down in the nice part of Lima, in I don't know if it was Miraflores, but close to that, in the nice part. My wife died in childbirth, and my teenage son keeps attempting suicide. And from him to get from his house in Caraballo to his shop is like 2+ hours at best each way. And he's got to be there working. He's like, my son won't survive. He'll kill himself. So I'm selling off my equipment down there. I closed my shop, and I'm just having to sell off equipment. And having some free food would be really helpful. So I don't know what I'm going to do. And we said, well, what kind of shoes can you make? And we said, any. So we said, we'll help you bring your shoe equipment. We'll help you buy back equipment that you sold. We'll bring your shoe equipment out here to Caraballo, and we will set up shoe manufacturing. If you can run it all, we'll get that launched for you. You need to train other people on how to do this in case something happens to you, and teach them so they can go out and get good cobbler jobs. He's like, yeah, absolutely. So his shop is now at his house, and I've videoed it and put it out on a few things. Joe Nakamoto, he'll have some stuff. He had some good sit down interviews with this guy named O'Hare, and he makes all our shoes now. And he runs his business completely on Bitcoin, and he trains people around there, gives them vocational training. It's part of the motive system. It's the way we designed the thing to grow and be. As the community's needs evolve, this fills that in. It operates on Bitcoin because the people can't be banked, so Bitcoin works the best. So it further generates that Bitcoin circular economy and radiates it outward. He makes really nice, and we were actually able to do some design work with him to increase the functionality for specifically what we need. So it's a pretty cool process.
That's amazing. That is so heartwarming. That's a classic Bitcoin story right there. That's just so great. And I guess the next question from me is, what was the reason the kids were dying? I know you said it's because they weren't wearing shoes, but like, what manifests when they're not wearing shoes and are exposed?
Like
Go ahead.
Yeah, pneumonias and various types of infections, things like that. Infections that get out of control, pneumonia. I don't know all the specifics.
The reason I ask is because there's a bunch of barefoot Bitcoiners out there, and call shoes a scam. Yeah, I'm like, I guess check your shoe privilege before you call shoes a scam, right? It's obviously hugely different examples, but definitely something to think about. And I've had a few people on the podcast as well talking about their barefoot journey, but it's fine if you're barefooting around beaches and your well heated home, or even city pavements. That's completely different to being in the Andes and having bare feet exposed to rock,
freezing
gravel, stone,
temperatures,
cold.
Yep, exactly. And they probably have other layers to help them stay warm, even if their feet. Because man, I see. I remember one thing that really stood out to me. I was a sports agent. I'm in Sweden for a big event in Stockholm, and we go to the VIP after party thing. We go straight in, and I saw this line of people out there outside waiting to get in the club, and it was Sweden cold, man. It was brutally cold. And the guys outside in the line are in jackets and everything, boots and all. And the girls are in pencil skirts, cute little light tops, and like high heel shoes. And they're just dealing with it. So I realize I'm a complete wimp when it comes to cold, because I'd be one of those dudes. And girls have the special strength. But the kids, when you see the Andes, it's very, very, very steep hillsides. And not only you walking up, but you got to walk down it. And going downhill in environments like that, there's a lot of sliding and slipping. So there's cuts, and you don't have antibiotics, and you don't have medicines when you're out there, and you don't have very sanitary conditions either. So it's just not. It is a check your first world privilege when it comes to that, or certain environments. Yeah, but if you lived in, not that Jamaica's third world, but you live in a place like Jamaica, you probably be good to go. But the Andes.
No, exactly. All right. Well, the donor. You said you share the same donor as Bitcoin Beach, and I've had Mike on the show, and Mike's told the story everywhere. Michael Peterson, who started Bitcoin Beach, who was mysteriously contacted by who was representing somebody else that wanted to kickstart a circular economy, but it had to be built on Bitcoin. And these were the terms. He said it was the weirdest meeting he'd ever had in his life. How did it come around for you? Who got in touch with you, or whatever you're able or willing to share?
So that weird, mysterious individual is Alex Fedoruk. He's our director of communications, and he's been a longtime family friend of mine. And is a very close friend of the donor since before Bitcoin, since before Bitcoin was invented. So he's the one that reached out to Mike and said, "Hey, could you do this?" I thought, and I don't know if Mike reached out to him or vice versa. Anyway, Alex is the one, and the donor was presented a few times where Mike put together really professional stuff. From what I understand, I'm telling this third party. Third hand. And Alex understood more of the way the donor views things or understands things, and helped him create a very rudimentary explanation of what I'm going to do. And the donor was like, right on. And now Mike's relationship with the donor is super tight. Mine isn't. My relationship with Alex certainly still is, and always will be, I'm sure. And he and I worked together on back in my sports industry days. He was the director of PR for Kia. He was top of communications at Subaru and other big auto industry things. Anyway, yeah, what he put out to me was a little bit. I just spoke with Mike about it, and Mike had a little bit different directive than what I had, or understood it differently, or I understood mine differently. Mine was, I will help, and I will keep helping if you can make these transactions be circular. And my response was, then you would need a Bitcoin circular economy. And the response back to me was, well, I know I can't really ask you to create a whole economy, but yeah, that's what you're looking at. So for me, that was the goal. That's it. Now, what I got to do is create that infrastructure that allows it to happen, and then it goes. And so he's been fantastically supportive. He did stop supporting any U.S. operation, all of our design team, all of that cut, I don't know, early this year. And I've been self-funding since, but I'm now out of self-funding ability, and I'm out on the job market looking for my next gig. But he's still supporting operations in Peru. And so Motive will probably, because I'm a 501c3 nonprofit here in the US, I will probably need to shut that down. Motive will still exist, but it won't be a corporation. It has no money coming in. It only has my money going out, paying for CPAs and bookkeeping and registrations and that kind of thing. And it will really, what it'll turn into is, this was a project to develop this portfolio of programs that has adaptable case use to multiple kinds of applications. And if anyone is interested in employing this portfolio of programs or any one of the programs, contact us and we will show you how. Separately, Motive Peru will, and I don't know if he will create a legal entity on that or not, because the other thing is the money used to flow through Motive directly to the individuals. It doesn't flow to a foreign entity whatsoever. So it still does that. And I think it's probably, Valley really has to look it up for himself. It may be safer for him to not have an entity. But I look at, all right, well, I'm a Bitcoin US 501c3 operating on Bitcoin. Money flows through us to individuals down there. I don't want to get flagged by anyone or have to do. I don't have the money to, even just answer, hey, we have investigative questions. I'll always lawyer up. I was a cop. I know. I'm never speak to anyone without an attorney present. So I think what it'll become, Motive will become two things. One is that final product that we were able to design and we have the complete roadmap for, and we'd be able to roll out for any company, missions organization, whatever it might be. And then separately, the continued operations will go there. And Valley has a big heart for church planning. And I think he might take it in that direction. Really, that'll be all his now. He can run with that in whatever way. If it really goes awry of Motive's principles, we'll have to talk about using our name and logo, but I don't see that happening. And then here, like one of the unique things about Motive's design, and I don't know if it's because of the environment we designed it in, or maybe because of my background or way of thinking or whatnot, but it's designed really well to operate in non-permissive environments. So Afghanistan, post Biden pullout, Motive would operate really well in there. And we have. If you were a missions organization, and we were involved in some rescue stuff before, but our programs lend themselves to that for Afghanistan. In a missions, like a church mission sort of thing, where they're going to non-permissive countries, and they want to go and deliver that value right up front and really create. Because one of the things I like about what we're doing in Peru, when you're just so freaked out, you don't know where your next meal is coming from, you don't know where your kids' meals are coming from, you know that you can feed your kids if you sell yourself to those guys for a day or two, or sell one of your kids and then everyone gets fed for a few days. That really happens. Absolutely. Those are the people that we are helping get out of those situations. It's just a reality in other parts of the world. There's a barrier to your faith. There's a barrier to even considering God when that's your reality. Like, really, there's an all-power being. This is what I'm having to do to feed my kid. Don't talk to me about that. And a lot of missions organizations come in and, we'll solve your problems and we'll pay for this and here, we'll feed you and all. No, you're just really it's not a bad enslavement, but it is building that slave mindset. What we do is we go in and we say, hey, this is going to be on you. You're going to have an opportunity have a scholarship education to learn how to do for yourself and yours. And you got a set amount of time. You need to learn this stuff, and then you need to do it. And we'll be around. Come back and hit us up. We'll help you guide your way on up through. And understanding Bitcoin, understanding that there is any value in independence or freedom, doesn't come until after they are self-sufficient. After they have that understanding, like, you know what? I've built up a bunch of things around here. I know I can earn more money by doing things a little smarter or doing them more frequently. I know if everything was stripped away from me today and I got shipped off 2 hours from here, I could do it all again. I know how to do this. I am not trapped anymore. That's the first time the people in Peru that we deal with even recognize a value in independence. You describe independence to them and they'd go, you're an idiot, or you're a special, powerful gringo who can do that. We can't do that. We need other people to take care of us. It's like a reverse racist thing. It's like, that's what we need. No. We can't take care of ourselves. We need you gringos. We'll do whatever you want. Just take care of us. And we have to really overcome that culturally and go like, no, you absolutely can. There is no special power that we have that you don't have. You have it. We're going to teach you how to start developing it and building it. Here you go. This is the way you build up to where you are in control of how much money you earn. You're not preaching a prosperity doctrine here or anything, but the ability to sustain yourself and your family through your own means. And Bitcoin allows you to do that. If you're waiting on getting into the bank, you can't even be at your job full time. You just can't. Even if you can be banked there, it's a couple hours standing in line there. You're not going to be able to get things done. So anyway, the same barrier, I believe, exists when it comes to faith. And I just came from me and Mike Peterson and Valley and a bunch of other great guys. We're involved in this Thank God for Bitcoin design lab in El Zonte. And I won't talk too much about it because I was just one of the ones invited in to do that. But some of the things that I heard there is that a lot of people's barriers to, like, had some missionaries. They wanted to go serve around the world in the most difficult places, and and when they get pushback on is, yeah, you're Santa Claus, come in, bring us stuff, we need food, bring us food. And he's like, yeah, it's a barrier, and it creates this weird mess that's, all right, we're having needs served, but we're getting lip service. And then other times it is they have bad experience with pastors that are taking in tithe and are really doing well financially, and the community isn't. And it creates a poison pill for a long term. So my hope is that some missions organizations will say, wait a minute, tell us about how we can go in and deliver tangible human rights, ability to exercise human rights, and go in and deliver that to them. Free gift. Here you go. Here's how to be self-sufficient and form your own local healthy economy, or at least one that will survive and all. And by the way, I'm doing this because Jesus put it on my heart to come and help you achieve what I was born into. So here you go. If you have any questions about this Jesus guy, hit me up afterward. I think it's a good model. So that's where I see, the Motive Peru keeps doing Peru. Motive is a tool that a missions organization could use like that, or a company. We have we helped a tiny bit broker the deal for a waste to energy landfill in Peru, in Lima. And it's solving the problem of they have a landfill that's horrible, but they have like 9 different trash collecting concessions, businesses, and they get paid to pick up the trash, and then the concessions pay the landfill to dump there. So yeah, I pick up the trash and I dump it on this concession streets. I ain't taking it up and paying the landfill. So there's trash all over the streets. Well, that created a sub-economy of recycling trash pickers. So when this waste to energy landfill comes in, it's going to provide more sustainable, reusable, green energy, electricity to the nation. Part of that is planned to be dedicated to, you know, the stranded energy dedicated to Bitcoin mining. That company said, hey, when we come in there, we have to give money to charities. It's part of I have a 10% social responsibility thing to do there. But he said, you might be a useful one. They're planning on using some hospitals, but you might be a useful one motive, because you could take those trash picking recyclers and give them vocational training and entrepreneurial training and re-job them and upskill them. I'm like, absolutely. And the amount of money that they said, yeah, here's what we would earmark for you for per month for decades, would be more than what our budget is now. And we have a fantastic budget. So, you know, I don't know how to find more of those situations and pitch those, but that's the kind of thing where, and what their interest was, not only was it, all right, you're going to give us a good look, but we want you to do that in the communities where our trash collections are going, to help develop those up. We want to better those community. And then we'd actually, for our lower income employees, could you roll your programs out into our families? And we talked to them. They were very, very tuned in with Bitcoin already, thankfully. They were like, yeah, it would be great to do Bitcoin payments. One of the problems that they run into in Peru, husband gets a check on Friday, drinks it Friday night. Wife has had enough of it. Husband's out of the house. Job, loses their trained employee. Turns into turnover. So family wallet, pay goes into, you know, they're unbanked. So pay goes into the family wallet. You could even divide that out. There's all kinds of tools we've talked about building for that. The wife is involved with the company and whatnot. Our programs are doing, our after school programs are going for their kids and all. Dad better not screw this up. Mom will be on dad to make sure he doesn't screw this job up. And it should be a good system. We'll see. So we're designed to do a lot of that. And with our training, they've also talked about, hey, could you be our vocational training arm? Train the employees coming up through. You can earn some more money being a training unit. So there's a lot more design left to do, but the design team's funding was cut. So until that gets back up and going, we've got what we've got.
How can the plebs help that are listening that might want to get involved here?
Number one, spread the word. I would say focus in on what you're supporting in Bitcoin and why. If you are focused in, and there's nothing wrong with wanting your stack to get huge, that's absolutely great, but there's more to Bitcoin than that. And if you want your stack to get really huge, maybe take a look at some of the use cases and recognize support on that. One of the amazing things about this donor, this doesn't come back. There is no return on investment for him. This is completely altruistic. And he's given a ton of money. And I was trying to, because I'm that investigator, I'm like, okay, what's your angle here? How are you? I want to follow the money. I'm trying to follow the money on this guy. The only thing I could possibly see is, with as much as I know that he's given out, and I don't even know the full amount, is that he believes, hey, I have a giant stack. If I do things that make Bitcoin really grab hold and take hold and is adopted and is used as something other than gold, then my stack will grow that much faster. And I hope he's proven right, because he's certainly given an incredible amount to it.
But he seems to be deploying it. He seems to be deploying it very, or she, deploying it very specifically to those areas that really need it the most. I mean, like I call them the developing parts of the world or third world or whatever. Unless there's a shit ton of other projects we just haven't heard of yet. Like,
there's a
who
shit ton
knows?
of other
But
projects
the only two I know of are what you've just explained and El Zonte. And why choose El Zonte? Like, why did I guess the link here is
I
probably
think
Alex, and Alex knew Mike, and knew Mike was down there, and knew you, and
Alex didn't know Mike. Alex was set to research and find people doing things.
huh.
And Mike has connections in Orange County. Like one of Mike's buddies, Peter, he's San Clemente, which is he's 2 towns south of me. Alex was living here in Laguna where I was. I think he was in Laguna at the time, or next town up or whatnot. He might have known somebody there. I don't know how that connection came about, but the reason I understand the donor picked Mike's project with Bitcoin Beach is that he liked that it was he liked the plan that Mike wanted to roll out. And at first, I don't think he understood the plan that Mike wanted to roll out. And once Alex kind of helped translate it, he was like, "Yep, let's go." And
let's enable a community.
He's really he leans on Mike heavily for advice and guidance, and just thinks the world.
Well, that's way more interesting than dying with your Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So let's hope there are a few more silent whales out there that take this guy's lead, or again, this woman's lead, whoever it is. It could be Satoshi himself. Who knows?
I wish that more of the really big whales would look at and go after and do more of these projects where it is turning to make it circular, because ours is towards circular. I think ours is further along the circular journey, and me and Mike actually disagree on how circular Motive is, but I think both of us recognize, it ain't full circle, because there's still Bitcoin coming in through donation. That's not, economies don't get donated to. Now, if we're able to get, if we get this deal with that landfill company and those type of deals where that's infusing the money in, okay, now, I can tell you it is full circle. So it's that infusion part.
And that would be amazing, because you're getting Coinbase coins into the circular economy, right? If they're mining Bitcoin off the waste gas from the landfill, and that's the Bitcoin that's entering the circular economy, that's just pure.
Right. Yeah, that would be fantastic. Well, and what they were planning on spending on us was more than what they'd be getting from mining. There was a fantastic amount. Just lost my thought. Oh, like for our circle, so it comes from Motive into a mom's wallet. Mom pays her vocational teacher in Bitcoin, because classes are only valuable if you're paying for them. She pays the childcare, the kids program, in Bitcoin. Both of those are, independent workers that work through Motive at our comprehensive centers that are earning in Bitcoin. And that mom has enough left over. She can buy her food from the market in Bitcoin. She can buy her cell minutes from another market in Bitcoin. She can pay for her utilities in Bitcoin. And now, and that would be just in the basics. It's going through 5 places. I'm sure
you're getting clothing and haircuts thrown in there too, right?
Oh yes, yep, yeah, that's right. I don't know about haircuts, but definitely clothing. And the now each one of them is receiving Bitcoin it's got to go somewhere. They have similar needs. So you take those 5 to 7 points of transaction, and now you multiply those out 5 to 7 times as well in that community. That's how it's radiating out, and it creates an up pressure. All right, there's a super impoverished community. There's Bitcoin available. This business, these construction guys, they don't take Bitcoin. And eventually, they're in an impoverished area. They're needing work. Be like, hey, if you'll take the Bitcoin, that's all I have is Bitcoin. And we don't have ATMs. We can't cash out. We don't have anybody cashing anybody out. We help facilitate, like the shoemaker and different things. There's some where we have to help them cash out larger sums to buy
the raw materials they need to make the shoes.
Right, outside of our little realm. But now we have construction guys going, all right, yeah, no, we'll do that. We'll take our payment in Bitcoin because they can buy their food and their cell minutes, and they can put their kids into the child care program. Same thing. So it's radiating it out. But it does not, like, I talk to a lot of these other organizations that are doing Bitcoin circular economies, and they look at us and they go, how in the world do you do so much? So we have 15 of them. We're in 4 major regions of Peru. And you know, each one of those is, we have about 750 families under our care at any given time. And they're like,
have you spoken to Fedimint helping you out at all? Because this sounds like a perfect scenario for Fedimint to come in and for people to use the wallet in such a way. I'm just interested.
I don't know what Fedimint is. I don't know the wallet.
Man. Well, I'm hooking you up with Obi. This is the perfect. Okay. This is the absolute. This is what they've built. So you know, yeah, you'd have that one family member holding the wallet for maybe extended family that don't purely understand it yet, and the payment would come in and then get split, just like you explained. Bam, 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 bam. This has been built. Fedimint are there, and they're ready to pretty much go. So this is something that Obi would be really excited to learn about, or a member of the team. I can put you in touch with him or Pete. Funnily enough, Peter was the one that came on and talked about barefoot running. But he's all cushy over there in Perth, where it's nice and warm, and you know.
Right.
So I'll get you guys hooked up, because this sounds like the perfect test case scenario for Fedimint to roll something out, for you guys to test it, to make sure that this thing works as designed. So there's one thing I'm going to make a note of and get you connected.
Yeah, no, I would do that. But I look at what these other communities are doing that are trying to do this, and the level of funding they have, and I just have to look at it. I mean, I don't say this, and I apologize even putting this out here now, but that's not enough money to do it on. You're not going to create a full circle anyway. And like what Bitcoin Beach has going for it, number one, it has some really distinct advantages with first to market and notoriety, but it's a great tourist place. Money, you know, and what Mike has done there as far as putting El Zonte on the map and really infusing money into that local economy is fantastic, whatever kind of money it is. As far as the circular transactions and the way they go around there, it's harder to measure now that it's you're supposed to be able to pay for anything in El Salvador, which I wasn't able to. There was a couple times where they wouldn't accept Bitcoin for certain things. But that's a different model of, hey, come and spend your Bitcoin here, come and pull it in there. There's just a lot of places where none of the places we're at, people want to go. Maybe Cusco, but that's the big whales that want to see it adopted. It's not about having it is partially about having institutional adoption, and that's working on the regulatory side of it and all, but there's a big part of it on bank the unbanked and really put enough in to where they are learning to run it on their own. And that you put in programs, and it's limited time for them to get up and going. You really do walk alongside them, but it's up to them to either sink or swim. And those that swim are going to buy more Bitcoin with where they go up, and those that sink are going to sink. You can't save everybody. That's one of the things about where we're at in Motive that Valley and I have struggled with. There's been people in our programs in a baking class for too long. Sorry, gotta move on. I won't be a part of turning into a charity where we're doing handout, because that enslaves people. They will see that hand as the master, whatever hand it is. But if you employ these programs as they are designed, I really do believe you'll lift economies out. You will have true adoption of Bitcoin from a grass level. What if we had all of the millionaires in the world adopt Bitcoin? That'd be great. What if you had all of the impoverished people? Well, that would be the vast majority of the world. So that's we have a system that I think works well for that.
Love it, mate. Well, yeah, like give a man a fish and he'll feed himself for a day, teach him how to fish, and he'll feed a family for the rest of his life, right? That's exactly what you guys are doing. So just to wrap this up, I got to ask you the final question. If you had one last orange pill left to give to somebody, who would you give that to and why?
That's a tough one. And it would be effective. And they would buy in and say, this is the way the world should be.
Yep. And then go spread that message.
Man, I'm thinking right now that I would probably put that in Elon Musk's hands. I think a lot of the world like him or dislike him personally. They recognize it's a rare genius. I think people saw that kind of thing in Einstein, where they're like, oh, wait a minute, this is a different animal. And I think Elon is that. And I think a lot of people hate him for political reasons or whatnot, or disagree on this and that, but nobody looks at him and go, oh, this idiot. If they do, they're the idiot. And the way that he doggedly pursues something with conviction and with a lot of principle. I know he has to have give and take, but yeah, he's the one I would say is going to be least moved by anything else and will press it forward hardest.
Awesome, mate. Awesome. Well, he's been close. He's been very close. And I know, well, Sailor's had at the very least a Twitter exchange with him, and who knows, perhaps a personal meeting or at least phone call. So let's hope he stops messing around with the Dogecoin tweets and whatever else, and just goes Bitcoin only and pushes the needle. And yeah, but like you've said here, it's all about grassroots movements, and it's all about getting Bitcoin in the right hands, and the right hands are those that need it the most. And for anybody listening to this now, go back 4 or 5 episodes, go and listen to the 2 ladies I had on from the Open Dialogue Foundation here in Europe, where they're doing everything that they can to keep Bitcoin, to educate the regulators in Brussels as to why Bitcoin mining is not bad for the environment, so we don't get a ban, so they can keep using Bitcoin as a tool for human rights in different parts of the world in which they find themselves representing people and trying to protect people as well. So yeah, Bitcoin is freedom. Bitcoin is hope. How can anybody reach out to you if they've been inspired here and they want to help? What's the best way to get in touch?
You can reach me at rs@motiv.ngo, motiv.ngo. Or Rich Swisher at iCloud.com. Yeah, and if there's any hiring managers out there at any Bitcoin companies or any company like that, reach out to me. I've got a lot of experience from all over the board and would love to dive in. on a, you know, my ideal would be to be able to stay in the Bitcoin space, but wherever, if I end up outside of that, I'll just be orange pilling people out there.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much, Rich. Really appreciate you coming on, and yeah, all the best for the future. Please reach out anybody who's listening to this, and let's get you all the help you can you need. And thanks for everything you're doing for Bitcoin.
Very cool. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure being on here.
Thanks, mate. Take care.
All right. Cheers.